All right, we live, ladies. So thank you and welcome to another installment of She Saves the Day. And just in time, we have our very special lineup of panelists. I'm gonna go from my left. I'm gonna do counterclockwise and start with Ronnie, and go to Tallinn, Moana, and then we have Erica on video. So why don't you all introduce yourselves, ladies? And the question that I love to pose is, who are you, and what is your passion?
Okay, so I guess I will start. Hi, everybody. My name is Ronnie or Bunny. Um, I am a cosplayer of 12 years now, I think. Yeah, that sounds right. Geekdom lover, and recent cosplay like erotic model. That's my new line of work now. So a little switch of life pace, and yeah, just advocate for anybody that needs more of a voice in general, I'd say.
Yeah.
All right, before I start, I wanna back up a little bit because you've been doing this for 12 years. Aren't you like I don't want to put you on blast. I want to put you on blast.
Put me on blast.
Like that means you started when you were like a teenager.
Yeah, I started cosplaying when I was 13.
Barely.
Yeah, like yeah, okay. I just wanted because it's like you add like 20 years to that, and that's when I started. Uh, I am Talon Kell. I am a cosplayer, an essayist, public speaker. I I mean, I guess I have my OnlyFans, so erotic modeling type deal, but whatever. I do a lot of stuff. Whatever interests me and whatever's calling me, I will start to engage in that. And so, yeah. And what's my passion? Um, I like telling people when they wrong.
Yeah.
I think that's really what my superpower is, and that's my calling in life. So, yeah.
That is true. I'll definitely give you that. That's your superpower for sure. Yeah.
Looks so good doing it.
Moana, please.
Hello, everyone. My name is Moana McAdams. I'm a multi-passionate person, so I like a lot of different things. But I am the author of the Adventures of Nakoa and Nohea children's book series. Editor for the Wild Card Chronicles comic book series. One of the hosts for the Moana Nui podcast. And just a champion for, like Ronnie said, underrepresented voices and providing platforms for those voices to be heard, which is one of the main reasons we started our podcast. It's specifically targeted for guests of indigenous, African diasporan voices, all the peoples of color. Absolutely. Let's see. But my main passion, I guess what drives me from day to day is people, like connecting people and helping people in whatever way that might surface. I think Cece knows this about me. We've worked together on a bunch of things. So yeah, I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yes, of course, of course. And we have on here Erica. You there, girl?
Erica's passionate about her children.
Yes, Erica's passionate about her family, definitely.
Family is everything.
We got a lot of writers in the house too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Erica's got a little girl, so she might be chiming in and out, y'all, and we appreciate your patience. So just chime in whenever you're ready, girl. And
I'm right.
Oh, go ahead.
Hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, child, not children, child. One. My name is Erica. I'm a publisher. I publish Fabulize magazine. It's an online and print publication for the blurred feminists. Just basically covering content and entertainment, pop culture from a Black nerd feminist point of view. I'm also a journalist. My work has been in Huffington Post, Elite Daily, Publishers Weekly, Flickering Mist. I'm also a, I guess, comic book writer now. I published my first comic in this year for Nora's The New Black. It's called Entanglement.
Nice.
And my passion is, I want to see more Black women in comics. I want to see more Black superheroes. I want to see just more diversity in literature and to change and disrupt whiteness as a default in literature, entertainment.
Yes. Right. Yes, to the whole panel. And last but certainly not least, we have the lovely Tranquil Ashes. Introduce yourself, girl. Who are you and what is your passion? You muted though, so you might do that first. Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
We can hear you now.
I don't have anything quite as lovely as everybody else, but I don't know. I am a collector of experiences, a cosplayer. I run my own gala, working on a gala 2 very soon. Artist, and I just kind of, whatever I feel like I have an interest in, I just do it, and it becomes the passion of the time. And a makeup artist as well. And that's currently what I'm, striving to get a little bit further along in. And I need all y'all to wish me all the luck in the juju. I entered Lizzo's contest. Hopefully they call a person, they call a girl,
Right.
We'll see.
Yes, get you some scholarship money, girl.
Right.
I hear you. Well, let's dive right in. Thank you all so much again for being here. What do I want to ask y'all first? Okay. I guess we'll start with the generic stuff. How did you find your place in this community? And by this community, I mean the geek community in particular. And how does that place transcend how does that transcend to your place in the world, I should say? And I guess Ronnie, you want to start us off?
Sure.
Okay.
So how did I find my place in geekdom? I guess I didn't even realize it was geekdom until probably like middle school. To me, it was just, whatever my cousins were doing and were into at the time. My cousins were watching Pokemon, so they were bigger than me and had control of the remote, so I was watching Pokemon,
Yeah.
And I think my dad ended up buying me, no, I kept like stealing my cousins' like Game Boys, playing their games, and I didn't even realize that, things like watching anime and playing video games were something that like not everybody did until probably like middle school. And I was like, oh, I'm niche, I'm subculture, cool, I'll take it, I guess. And middle school is that time when you don't want to be like anyone else. So I thrived knowing this was my thing that made me different, kind of, I guess, especially being a lady, because girls don't play games, obviously. And how that really transcended into my place in the world. I will say, luckily, I know some people have like mixed emotions about a lot of the things that we saw as niche growing up, a lot of the things that we were pigeonholed and sometimes even bullied for becoming more accepted and mainstream. But I think that my place now as somebody that likes anime and plays video games isn't much different from anybody else anymore. Maybe I'm just like in an echo chamber of other geeks and I shut out the rest of the world. But like it seems like it's a lot more, at least widely accepted now, which I think is super interesting and important. And I love that, other people are able to get into it and not feel the same sort of like fear or shame that some people might have, not participated in it before. And it also means that we've got a lot more variety of things to choose from. As I said, I've been a cosplayer of 12 years. Back when I was cosplaying, you could find like maybe a Naruto or an Inuyasha cosplay online. And then everything else you had to make yourself. And there wasn't like specific materials for cosplaying. You had to kind of like rinky dink everything together and find household items to make it work. But now there's entire crafting lines made by top cosplayers that are designed to make and facilitate costumes. And even then, just about any character you want to cosplay, you can find a ready-made costume online for, which I just love the accessibility that it's given by becoming mainstream. And there's more games and there's more comics. And I don't ever want to run out of that stuff. So I'm cool with it becoming mainstream, honestly. So I guess my place is now just kind of filing among the rest of the geeks that everyone just kind of has within them now, I think.
That's
There's
real.
It's interesting that you said that about the you can find costumes for ready-made ones for so many cosplayers, and yet there's still the whole size issue.
That
If you're a larger cosplayer, that's still not the case. You're still struggling. But I mean, it's definitely improved quite a bit. And because fashion itself has improved a lot as far as what's available for larger bodies, it's been great. I remember I can actually find clothing where I can alter it and make it look like a costume a lot easier now than I could 10, 15 years ago, where I couldn't even find like boots that would come over my calves. So it is definitely changed, but it's still there's still a lot of things or people who are excluded from it simply because of the way things are prioritized and people are prioritized in our society.
very much that.
Yeah, most definitely. Was that the answer to your question, Talon? Because I want to make sure you had time to say what you had to say.
I mean, I just wanted to come in and be like, okay, you're wrong about this. So
There she goes with her
oh my
passion.
God.
Right.
And what I say, looking great doing it.
I
No,
love
that's
it.
super important. Yeah, absolutely. Especially me, like definitely like call that out in mass, but definitely me, because I don't ever want to be like contributing to anything like that. And you're 100% right with that, that there is a certain body type that is
True.
uh, catered to in cosplays, especially if you're, you know, buying them overseas. Like you'd be stressed to find anything over like a size 6 maybe top.
Yeah.
So definitely that.
Yeah, that's real. That's real.
I mean, I would say, I guess my answer to that question is that, for the most part, I didn't realize it wasn't something that I could not participate in. Like when I saw people I'm in Atlanta, so it's a whole different landscape here. Dragon Con's been happening for like 30 years. And so like thousands of people were descending onto the city every Labor Day weekend already. And somebody told me about it and said, let's go downtown. And I saw it and I was like, I'm coming back because I want to dress up for more than Halloween. Like I want to really dress up.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't until I was in it for a while as it became more mainstream. And that was the really interesting part. Like when I started going, it was right before it got super duper popular with, I mean, just across the board. That's because social media was just starting. Facebook might have been a year old the first time I went to Dragon Con, and people weren't sharing stuff, and you weren't watching these communities form, you weren't watching these niches form. And then once it started getting more popular, you saw that photographers would treat different cosplayers differently. You saw them actively say, oh, I'm not interested in you, but I'm gonna spend 20 minutes on your friend. And as it's gotten more popular, like I would watch how the photographers would work because I was like, how am I going to get pictures? I want pictures. And it wasn't even about seeing them online necessarily. It was about just getting them. But then when I saw who was being included in the lists, I started looking at who the photographers were for all these websites that were taking, posting cosplay pictures. And it was like the same 6 photographers. And I was like, oh, so if I can get some pictures with them, that's going to increase my chances. But what also happened at the same time was that a lot more outlets started making their own things. And so you started realizing, man, if you could just create your own, you could make whatever list you want, put whatever people you want on that list, and boom, you have your top 10 list. And I was like, oh, so anybody can do this. Anybody. So something switched in my head, and I will admit it took a while because I wasn't really about a public life at all. But I realized that I could create the spaces I wanted to see. I could create and talk about the topics that interested me and invite people to that. I could, create certain platforms and invite people onto those platforms. So I decided to start creating the conversations that I wanted people to be having and, putting people in those spots so that they could be seen and they could be heard. And it became a lot less about getting included and stuff. Don't get me wrong. I still like to be invited, but you know, the older I get, the more I'm like, I want to be invited, but I'm not going to follow your rules. So
Right.
maybe I should just make my own so I could do whatever the hell I want.
Right.
And I kind of lean harder into that, which means I'll never be extremely popular, but I'll pretty much be able to do what I want to do.
Mhm.
There's a sense of freedom that comes with that.
No, yeah. And I mean, I wouldn't even necessarily say that that can count you out from being extremely popular, because I think, as you said, there's like those same 6 photographers that are taking the same 6 photos of the same 6 cosplayers again and again and again, which, I mean, those ones are definitely good at what they do, but it leaves a hole in the market for variety.
Yes.
And I think that, you know, you bring to the table something that not a lot of other people are doing, and could definitely appeal to other people who are feeling, you know, the same frustrations. They might look to you for inspiration, or even, you know, be aiming to get on your platform, make your
Yeah.
top 10, you know.
Yep.
So
That's a great
never
point.
know.
Yep, and I definitely want to segue to Moana, because Moana's a photographer in addition to being a writer. And I know that Erica, following up, you write for Fabulous Magazine. So we have people in this space right now, you know, tall, and like you said, the spaces that you created, who create these spaces, right? We
Yeah.
know what it's like to be treated a certain type of way because of however people want to size you up. And you know, now we've had to create other opportunities for people who look like us and people who, you know, are marginalized. So without further ado, Moana, tell us how you found your place in the geek community.
No, I would just want to kind of piggy off what Ronnie said in terms of like, there are unique opportunities, because I think a lot of people fall into the trap of trying to be like what other people are doing. And that's not where you belong, because there's already people in that space, right? It's not a knock, it's not a good or bad or anything. It's just offering variety and bringing another point of view in a way that is natural for you. And I think, you know, I kind of find myself doing that as well right now. The older I get, like Talon was saying, it's not like the less I care, but the more I just feel like what I'm doing is important to me. There are people who vibe with it, right? And those are the people that I want to be around anyway. And for the people who don't like it, then they don't have to like it. It's haters everywhere. You know, if you have haters, that means you're successful because they care enough to hate on you. So it's kind of how I view it. But how I found my place, so I'm probably the oldest member of this panel. So I kind of grew up in a time where there weren't as many labels in terms of like geekdom, you know, all the labels that I see now. Like I'm just like, and you know, I grew up in Hawaii, which is a special, unique place in and of itself, where like the divisions aren't as stratified, I guess. It's more of a community where it's a lot of different cultures and ethnicities all in, you know, together. And you know, I never knew that, oh, look, that's my Filipino friend, that's my Portuguese friend, you know, like all those things. That was just that's Alma, that's Joni, you know, like all my girls, whatever. But yeah, so when I was growing up, I was a tomboy in general. So I like Ronnie was saying, like I did a lot of things that girls were not expected to do. I got teased a lot by boys because I excelled at things that they did, and often much better than they did. So I got, you know, I probably got a lot of what we would call bullying in today, but it's just, you know, boys doing their thing. And like when I was growing up, like all the cartoons I liked was all the more male centered ones, like Transformers and He-Man and G.I. Joe, you know, and all the ones that, not My Little Pony, not Care Bears, you know, not all of those things. So, I mean, and how it transcends now into life, it's even in my career. Like I ended up in a technology career, and it's all like engineering, computer science, which is male dominated spaces, right? White male dominated spaces, spaces where you don't see women of color, and you damn sure don't see very many Pacific Islanders anywhere. So for me, I've always been looking for like women in leadership roles or in places of influence that I can relate to. But it's been really hard because you don't see a lot of Pacific Islanders. And so for me, it's like, I kind of got to a point, it's like, well, I guess I don't see anyone. So I guess that has to be me, right? Like I have to do it for the next generation, whoever's coming to follow, so that they have someone. but it can be a lot of pressure for you to be that person, right? Especially in spaces where you're not seen a lot. So it's kind of what I'm trying to do with our, we do with the Wildcard Chronicles, which is our comic book series. We represent all of our characters are from different ethnicities and things like that. On the Moananui podcast, like I'm trying to bring content that gives Pacific Islanders more of a forefront and to be seen, and for folks to learn more about the culture, because it's so much more beyond like grass hula skirts and coconut bras and all the commercialization that people see of the culture, but not necessarily the substance. So I could go on and on, but I'll let everybody else speak too.
No, you're good. We gonna talk about it. Yeah. But I appreciate you offering your story a little bit. Erica, you there, girl? I want to hear your story and how you found your place in the geek community. You tapped into it a little bit. I don't know. I feel like I should do the Jeopardy.
Okay, so can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. You go.
Okay. All right. So I was kind of, I kind of grew up as a geeky nerd girl, but professionally, I tapped into it because I had the opportunity to do it professionally, and there wasn't a lot of Black women in the space. There's still not enough Black women in the space. There's not enough Black women who read films. There's not enough Black women who are pop culture critics. So I just saw an opportunity and I said, you know what? It's way too many white men in this industry, and it's already hard enough for Black people in media. So I'm, just like white people sit around and like critique Black art and Black creatives and call it subpar or they don't get it. I was like, I'm gonna do the same thing with white art. I'm gonna say your shit is trash, and I'm gonna say it's very underwhelming, and I'm gonna get paid for it. So that's, I did it because I wanted to make space for myself. I was very intentional about reviewing, interviewing, and highlighting Black creatives and Black-owned businesses. For the past several years, I would go to New York Comic Con, and I was very, very transparent about I'm only here for the Black people.
Yes.
So I would just like be, people like, oh, you're with this media, you with this media. I'm like, yeah, but my segment is my superheroes are Black, and that's what I'm here to talk about, Black superheroes. And then they'll be like, oh, okay. And I'm like, thank you. And just find all the Black people. So that's kind of my thing. I made it my mission, and I'm still doing it, and I'm very proud of the work I've done so far, and I hope to continue.
Yeah, I was very struck by the whole notion of my superheroes are Black, and I'm like, yeah, they are. So I love that. And just just what like you and Moana said, Erica, the notion of we have heroes who look like us. They just don't get lifted up and represented in the ways that we should. And Tall and Ronnie, you touched on that as well. So last but certainly not least, I feel like I gotta say that every time, but I'm not going to. Tranquil Ashes, tell us how you found your place in the geek community. I know you have quite a story yourself.
I mean, I guess it wasn't something that I was like trying to be a part of. I guess it was just, I was into it and then found out that there were other people into it. So it opened my eyes to, oh, this is like a big thing. Like this is a big, big thing. But I guess in terms of like my cosplaying, like makeup, integration into geekdom happened because I lived in Japan for some time, and I was doing work for plays and things over there. So coming back here, I ended up getting inspired by just, cosplayers that I was randomly seeing. And I was like, well, why can't I, do that? And so, I started doing it just for fun. And then it was when I realized that, the spaces that I assumed that would be there were not there. And especially when it comes in terms of like, anybody of plus size. And It wasn't, like I said, it wasn't my initial mission, but eventually it became my mission, because then I realized, is when you realize that people are looking at you and that you can affect change in like the things that you want to see. And I think that's when it really clicked for me to, bring, or make spaces that are inclusive. That's why I have the class gala. It focuses on, Black, people of color, disabled, LGBTQ, entertainment and networking, and, doing something, like the Met Gala. Hey, they got a Met Gala, why can't we have a gala type of deal? So, that's kind of where I focus my energy, in creating spaces for people to have fun and to be safe.
Absolutely.
I know that's right. I know that's right. All right. Let's keep it moving. Okay, I'm like, do I want to go into the harder stuff now, or do I want to ask something a little more well, we've been keeping it kind of chill, so let's do something a little more diving a little deeper. Um what challenges have you had in this community? And what challenges stem from your social location? I know we talked about this a little bit last time, but I want to start with this, and then we'll delve a little bit more into kind of like civil rights, Black Lives Matter, intersectionality, and all that good stuff after that. So Ronnie, why don't you take it away and tell us what challenges you've faced in this community? And when I say social location, I just want to, state what that means. It's pretty much like your place in society. So, a combination of your demographics. So like I'm a Black woman who's middle class, college educated, things of that nature. So yeah.
I would say honestly, not many. And that's just having to recognize the plethora of privilege even within the oppressed communities that I'm in, that I have. Like I am a woman. I am, Black, but I'm also skinny, fair-skinned with Eurocentric features, coming from like a middle class family for the most part. So I see it happen, but more often than not, it's directed at the people that I love, which actually hurts just as bad, if not worse, because it's like, I don't know. I've always had like a thick skin. And so like if somebody says something about me, I have gotten, the one-off racist comment every once in a while. I'm just kind of like, heh, nice. But like when it's someone that you love, you can't like, you can like pat them on the back, but you can't like brush the pain off in the same way that you can do for yourself.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think that's probably why I've become as like passionate about speaking up for people without a voice, is because everyone I've loved has gotten the short straw, in some area or another. And I've wanted to be able to at least say that I tried to help, with a system overall, or stand up for them, or, if they're saying, no, it's fine, I go, okay. And then when they've turned around, I go after the person and I'm like, listen here, you little shit. Don't you ever again in your life. But I would say in my specific social position, not much. But I think that that's all the more reason, because I'm accepted into these places, that, certain people who are in similar social positions to me, but might not just have the same sort of access. It allows me into spaces where I can be loud, and I can be disruptive, and I can bring attention to the people that need it. And that's my favorite. It's one of my favorite things. People say it to me as an insult, but it's one of my favorite compliments, is when people say, I followed you because you're cute, but you won't shut up about social justice. And I'm like, ha ha ha, I got you. And yeah, I would say in so many words that's pretty much the spot that I occupy, is being light-skinned and getting into situations and being accepted, and then saying hey, and then getting up on a soapbox with a megaphone and being like, now listen here.
definitely a delicate balance, because it's like not trying to co-opt or speak on behalf of a certain group of people, but also trying to utilize your privilege, right, to make space for folks who, or opportunities for folks who otherwise might not have it.
Mhm.
So, but at any rate, let me move to Tallinn. Yes. I'm like, which way am I going? Because I was going counterclockwise, and now my clock is
All over the place. Right, twice a day.
but I got it in my head now. Go for it.
Okay, so can you explain social location just a little bit more? Is that just like our intersections of privilege and possible oppression?
Yeah, in that sense. I will kind of put it that way.
Okay. For me, the hardest thing has been not recognizing that privilege is something that shifts and changes depending on where you are and who you're interacting with, but understanding how quickly other people will opt in to oppressing you when you somehow or other bring attention to their intersection of privilege. Like when I first started doing panels, there were a group of people I would associate with, and we were friends, and I invited them on everything I did all the time. And because my friend group was a large and diverse group, lots of different type of people, but predominantly black. I really only deal with black folks, except who I married. But we're not going to talk about that. My group was pretty diverse. We had people who had very different experiences, and that was great. But and some of them were men, and they happened to be men who their sexuality was kind of a little bit more amorphous. It wasn't as defined and readily, they weren't heterosexual. They were just, doing what they wanted to do. Cool. People would constantly give them credit for my work. I would organize the work. I would put together the presentation. I would be the one that made all the context. And then I would share that platform with everybody. And constantly people would come up and say, oh, you're on this person's panel. And I'm like, no, I made that panel. And the person who they were kept attributing this work to would never speak up and would just say, well, it's a group effort. And I'm like, no, I'm the one who actually just did this 6 months of work and built these relationships to make this happen. I need you to speak up and actually like step into this and say, hey, we work together, but this person actually was the one who made all of this happen. Like, I need you to actually attribute credit my work. And it went totally sideways. And I'm just like, man, how is it that we are in these same spaces and we know what it's like to be marginalized constantly, and yet here comes an opportunity for you to say, let's actually, be honest about things, and instead chose not to, instead just leaned into the prejudice, leaned into the assumptions, and then acted like that was that you were doing it. Like, that's mind-boggling. And so once that happened to me, and mind you, I wasn't really trying to be a visible person prior to this. I wasn't trying to be known online. I wasn't trying to be speaking in conventions or anything like that. This was something I just decided to do, and I was like, everyone come with me. Let's all do this together. Once I started realizing how sexism was affecting me in this regard, I was going to blogger panels to see what other people were doing, and most of them that I went to were mostly women. And when there were groups of all women, I would ask them, like, how do you deal with the sexism that's happening? And almost all of them were like, well, we don't work with men. And that was it. And so, like, you just find that as you move through different groups, like, and these are groups who are facing discrimination. So like, if you're hanging out with, people who are discriminated against for their sexuality, but there are white people in that group, you would find them being racist while, fighting the oppression for their sexuality. And the same thing with gender. Like, every time you go, you would just find that continually happening. And that's a really frustrating thing, because then it becomes what people talk about, the oppression Olympics, and they use this competition idea to silence you talking about what they're doing. And so that continues to be something that I struggle with, trying to get people to recognize that, multiple things are true at the same time, and our access and our privilege and how we are seen and responded to changes constantly based on where we are and who we're around.
Yeah,
Always
that's
breaking it down to a science. So,
yeah, that's very true. I find like that it's almost like it's people that are battling their internalized white supremacy, right? Like feeding off of those divisive approaches, and instead of uniting, um, it's easier to throw shade or cast accountability, responsibility, right? All the things off to someone else instead of taking like responsibility for your own contributions, whether it's little or small. Am I helping a situation or am I taking away? It's something you have to be like conscious of all the time, because it's so easy to go with the wave sometimes, right? Like, but being that voice for those people who don't often get heard is definitely a challenge, whether it be you personally or when you see it out in spaces that you're in. I think that's also one of my biggest challenges in the community. Kind of going back to what I was talking about, being like the very small amount of Pacific Islander. Like the challenge is that like I don't necessarily have a space, right? Like I don't necessarily align in the way that people think, because we often get included under the AAPI label. But for people who are PI, we're like, yeah, that really just means Asians, and Asians in a very like broad brush sweep kind of thing. Um, and then like even though like I can identify a little bit with Asian because I have Filipino, so that's also part of Asian. But like my main identity, the way I identify is Native Hawaiian, and there's just not very many spaces. So I can like I have kind of over time and as I've developed and matured, I find ways to align to other people of culture and that kind of thing, and have allyship with them, like because we all have very similar struggles, and trying to find ways to work together in those particular spaces. But I can't lie, there is a part of me when I'm just like, man, I wish there was more Pacific Islanders, in this space. And so I hope that one day I can, at least if it's not for me to connect with more, it's creating a platform that will attract them and help them see that there is a space, even though it's not that great right now. Like, um, like that's why I love beyond just like the external of The Rock and Jason Momoa, but like them showing like Pacific Islanders and Polynesians. I would like to see more females. We still need many, many more females. But letting them know that like you can reach that, that status and that level of success. But no matter where you fall in this community and in the spectrums, it's all about relationship building and having those relationships be genuine and authentic, and not only used to exploit for your own gain. Because I see that a lot in this community, especially since I started running this podcast and providing a platform. There's a lot of people who just want to gimme, 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 and not understand that there's a give and take to this, right? Like I'm here, I'll give you a voice, but like you also have to be giving back, right? Because it takes energy and all those things, and trying to fight off the toxicity that can sometimes come into the space is a challenge too. Yeah.
yeah.
It's like super disheartening to realize that, but this is the reality that we're navigating. Our society promotes predatory behavior.
Mm-hmm.
It rewards predatory and oppressive behavior, and that that little power grab you get, that little power influx that you get when you talk over somebody else or you take up somebody else's space. I mean, it speaks to you. It makes you feel important for a moment. And so it's hard realizing that you kind of can't give everybody the benefit of the doubt. You can't give most people the benefit of the doubt because a lot of people haven't been challenging this idea that, you know, we actually do engage in predatory behavior. It takes a lot of reflection and honesty that people don't want to actually engage in. So it gets real complicated and depressing real fast. Don't talk to me for joy. All right. I'm going to be your depressing person on your panel. So
No, but like it's really like you bring up a lot of like real points, Mona, especially like, I mean, I don't have any empirical scale to pull off of, but just off of what I've been able to take in over my life as far as media goes, I think um Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander is probably like one of the least represented groups that I've seen just across media in general. And I think that that is something that, you know, people become so hungry for, you know. I think sometimes they kind of get blinded in that situation where they're like, oh, it's my turn. It's my turn. I've been waiting this entire time. And I don't know. I think it sits differently when you're at home and looking at people that look like you and you get to plan for, okay, one day I get to be like that. But it's different when an opportunity suddenly comes at you with zero representation beforehand, kind of catches you off guard. And maybe those people then just kind of like react in a way that I would hope is just, you know, outside of the character, because they're now idealizing something that wasn't even an option for them before. And I hope that, you know, over the course of you continuing to do this and providing that representation, that people can kind of start to come towards you a little more correct as they have more time to really sit and think about how they want to come off as they, you know, enter this grand stage, and that you know, open the doors for other people to create other platforms as well, and hopefully help lighten that load for you a little.
No, that's right. No, that's right. All the sisterly love in here. Erica, why don't you tell us, and to your point, Tall, and I know you don't come here, we're not here for the positive vibes only, you know, we're here for the real. The joy is in being able to talk about these things and cultivate, you know, and share our ideas. So you ain't got to apologize, you know, I mean, not that you were apologizing, but you ain't got to state that disclaimer. But Erica, please, why don't you tell us about some of the challenges that you may or may not have faced in the community, or you know, outside of the community, based on your social location?
Men. Men are the biggest issue. Fat phobia, queer phobia. Those are the top three things that are really the most. Ableism, especially ableism, you know, just those things are just so, you know, the gatekeeping, white people. You know, I remember when one of my first articles went viral, and it was a whole bunch of people like emailing me, like, you know, they was like, you know, why are you highlighting her? I've had my comic book store open for the past 25 years. I want to be in Huffington Post too. Or, you know, she's at the first Black person with a comic book store. You know, like, it was really ridiculous. And I recall one of the first people that was in my inbox trying to make themselves readily available to me for like resources was Toby from Chocolate City Comics. And I didn't know that he was a white dude, right? So I'm thinking, you laughing, I'm serious. I didn't know. He was just like, you know, I know all these Black artists and these Black comic book writers and artists, and, you know, I would love to pitch these people for you for any stories you need. And, you know, he was just like really, you know, too friendly, I guess is the word I want to use. And I was just like, okay, well, you know, it's cool to have resources and everything like that. And, you know, just like all the time, telling me, I want to do this, I want to do this, and basically like position himself as a manager. And I'm like, well, if I want to interview somebody, I don't have to ask you. I can just go directly to the person I want to talk to. And like over time, it was clear that this person was, you know, manipulative. And, you know, after, you know, doing like some light investigation, I was really disappointed when I found out that, one, a lot of people just did not know that he was a white dude from England or wherever the fuck he's from. But what disappointed me the most is the people who did know didn't say anything. So I'm like, y'all would sit here on the internet all day long talking about how y'all support Black-owned businesses and how, like, you know, people don't support Black artists and Black creatives. Yet y'all let this white dude navigate all these Black spaces, knowing he's not Black. Like, it's one thing if you didn't know. Like, I didn't know. You know what I'm saying? And the only reason why I found out because he accidentally outed himself. You know, and yeah, that was like one of my big disappointments. I was like, you know what, this community is very shaky and finicky. It's not all roses and kisses. It's really about, you know, everybody want to get on, and while I understand that, you know, people want to get on, but the things that they would do, the amount of people they would step on, the amount of people they would backstab, lie on, and, you know, just do all type of violent things to say that they're closer proximity to whiteness. That's the most disappointing part, because it's like, you want to be the only Black person at the table, and I operate from, I don't want to be the only Black person at the table, because fuck their table. I want to push the table and flip it over. Fuck their table. You know, white people are not the gatekeepers of Black art. And even if you make shitty art, keep making it. If it makes you happy, do what makes you happy. And yeah, men are always the problem because they feel like they own and gatekeep and they are do everything. And, you know, as a journalist, it's already hard as a journalist because, you know, most men, they dominate media. And when you are reporting or doing beats that are male dominating, whether it's, you know, basically every beat is male dominating outside of parenting and fucking beauty and, you know, whatever. But like tech, finance, you know, pop culture, even the arts are all male dominating. And as a woman, you know, coming in and taking up their space, you know, they don't really respect your work. And I don't really give a shit. That's why I report and talk about the shit that I want to, or that I'm, you know, commissioned to do, because at the end of the day, why impress them? Who gives a fuck about them? Like, I don't. I know ain't nobody on this panel really do. So it's like, why should I, you know, I don't even write to appease them. Like, I write what I want to write. I write my truth. I write my reporting, and I keep it moving. And yeah, I hope in the future, like when my daughter gets older, I pray that she does not heavily lean into male acceptance, because it would never make her happy, or anybody who is attracted to men happy. Just do what you have to do. And you know, I tell everybody, just do what you want to do on your own accord. And yeah, smash it over.
I love it. You have such a sage way of saying the most radical things, and it makes my heart so warm inside.
What you mean?
Nothing. Tranquil Ashes, why don't you tell the folks how you know, your social location has shaped your perspective, or how people see you in the geek community, and how that may transcend to the outside world?
I don't know. Like, I feel that's always been an interesting question for me personally, because I feel like my struggle was never internal. It was always handed to me in a gift basket, and I wanted to get that shit back. Excuse me. Because I've always believed that I was capable of doing everything, you know, or anything that I wanted to do. It was the outside forces that made me question, you know what I mean? So I guess my biggest struggle really has always been the fact that I don't fit society's beauty standard. I'm a plus size woman. And I also am Black, and I also am, queer. So I check every box. So, it's never been a problem for me personally. It's always been somebody is telling me that what I am is a problem. And what I do the most is just ignore, honestly. Like, I've found that most haters or most people who are stalking you just to make you feel bad every day um, feel the worst when you don't respond, because they don't get the attention that they're so desperately wanting to validate their little sad lives that they have. Um, I would also say men a little bit. And the only reason why I say a little bit is because while I see how men move, I always like men always start at zero and they have to earn their way up. Like there's never really, there's no grace period for them. So if you're in my good graces, it's because you worked for it. But it's more so along the lines of like gatekeeping fandoms that I feel like men seem to be the most passionate about. Like, you instead of including people about it, you got to tell me why Goku's the best guy ever. And I'm like, but no. And you can't say that because, Goku is God to some people. But other than that, like I just really feel like my absolute biggest struggle has absolutely been the fact that my size isn't acceptable, quote unquote, to society. And like Talon had mentioned previously about accessibility to cosplays and all of those types of extra accessories. I've also had to find my ways around it. And, I've become a person who creates majority of their cosplays. And I've found it a little bit like liberating because I don't have to wait. I don't have to wait for anybody to come up with something just to let me have a scrap of it. I can just go do it myself and maybe come up with an idea that's, so different that I'm recognized for that in and of itself. And I will say to Erica, the beauty industry is dominated by men too. We might know we might know who Pat McGrath is, but everybody knows who James Charles is, and that is a problem. Like it's interesting. It's interesting. A lot of the quote unquote female dominated industries get put down by men, but at the same time they're holding the highest office in those industries. Beyonce's makeup artist is a guy. You know what I'm saying? So like it's really interesting. It's always been the limitations of what my body is in terms of acceptability, and men thinking that they know better.
Oh, you know what? You're absolutely right. I had to think about that. I was thinking in terms of like writers and editors, but like BeautyCon is being funded by Nas Firm, and there's a plethora of hair and makeup artists that are men that have a long list of celebrity women as their clients, and they're just equally talented women, especially Black women. We know Black women can do some hair. We know Black women can do some makeup, but they're the ones, at the bottom trying to consistently build up, their clients list.
Exactly. And I feel like also too, which speaks to before, like, how you're treated in different spaces. The unfortunate part about these spaces in a lot of ways is a collection of people who are interested in something, but have also been damaged by something before entering into their space or creating the spaces that they want. And so now there's this whole crabs in the barrel, for the little bit of space that, is left, in certain spaces and fandoms and whatnot. And I think that's why it's so great that everyone here is creating spaces so we don't have to fight no more.
Oh yeah, most definitely.
Definitely. And kind of also just to piggyback off of what Eric has said too, and kind of in a mix with what you said, Tranquil Ashes, that um, you had said that like the pop culture was dominated by white people. And I wouldn't even necessarily say that's true. I think that like pop culture rhetoric is dominated by white people because Black people are pop culture. There would not be pop culture without us. But the people who position themselves to be an authority on what then is or isn't pop culture after it's already been created is always white people. And that's why all the critic boards, all the academies, all the acclamations are always going to be the importance is created and then distributed by white people. And it's like, you don't get to tell us how important our culture is. You don't get to take something that's supposed to be ours, globalize it, and then decide whether it passes or fails when it was never created for you in the first place.
Yes.
Where my bad, I wasn't clear. I was speaking, as a journalist because I work in media, so I'm speaking of, these genres, the things that we see in editorial, who is running it and basically trying to say what is moving the culture, like Academy Awards. I'm thinking about film critics, Rotten Tomatoes, the mainstream media. That's what I mean by like that's who is dictating what pop culture is. Even marketing agencies, like the commercials. I remember maybe like 10 years ago or so when Steve Stout, Jay-Z's old business partner, wrote this book called Browning in America, and he had like this media agency where he was trying to help companies, urbanize, I guess that's not a word, but I made it a word, urbanize their products and marketing more authentically. I don't know if this agency's around now, but just like, these white lily ass agencies. I mean, I read Ad Week. I know who's, social media, when people be like retweeting like Wendy's and like, yes, you ate the girls up. And it's like some white chick from Idaho who graduated with like an English degree at Sam Smith College, like some nobody ass college that no one ever heard of, who's making like $75,000 a year using African American vernacular English that they just found on Twitter and decided to repost. That's the shit I'm talking about.
Oh, definitely. And I hope I didn't come off as like saying that you were
wrong.
No,
I wasn't clear. My bad.
That's
me.
What you were saying. I was kind of like, I want to piggyback off of this, but I 100% knew that you were talking more about your field, to which I would agree. In writing, the Black writers that are there are fully suppressed. So, like,
I mean that part like reminds me of what happened. What was it like last year? If you guys know the show American Gods, how Orlando Jones, it was Mr. Nancy, and he, he came on the show. He was the reason why people watched the show.
Yep.
And then the second season shows up and they don't write for his character. So he becomes the writer of his own character and also for every other person of color in the show. He writes the character books for them and he still got let go of the show. And you would think in these honestly, you would think in these capitalistic societies that they would include them because it's absolutely more money. Like if you cater to everyone, you're bound to get more money. Like if you make clothes for big, plus size people, you're going to get plus size people money. I just, that's how it's so rooted in supremacy that money doesn't even solve the problem.
Yeah. That's what it really, because it's not even so much about the money that there is to be made in that aspect as it is the things that narrative or the narrative of Mr. Nancy and what it disrupted. And and they were just like, yo, somebody must have called them and was like, we got to get this shit off the air. Because,
definitely. And I mean, like, even like with...
Oh no, I was just gonna say real quick. I think back to that scene in Game of Thrones where I think it was Cersei and Littlefinger, and he's like, knowledge is power, and she was like, no, power is power. I think back to that scene in that aspect. So to some extent, you're right, but at the same time, because people are capitalizing off Black Lives Matter. Now that that's a trend, folks are kind of definitely on that bandwagon, but at the same time, it's being watered down, and very much like MLK and all of our other icons throughout history. But
what we're talking about though is so Tranquil Ash just alluded to, mentioned the crabs in the barrel. And if you know what Russian nesting dolls are, where there's like a smaller doll and a smaller doll and a smaller doll, right? We're in like the nesting dolls of crabs in barrels. Like the everything around us, the structures, the institutions, that's the barrel. And we are literally what white supremacist patriarchal capitalism is rooting through to feed off of. That's literally the reality, which is why when you center whiteness in all of your narratives, you're feeding something that is actually feeding off of you, and in a weird way you are like self-cannibalizing in that regard. So
self-cannibalizing, I like that.
so when we're talking about even just the crabs in the barrel part, like we're holding each other back to get from the next nesting crab barrel that gets us closer to whiteness. And it's a losing gambit. And even though I know, to a certain extent we have to function in these systems because our survival depends on it, there's also the part where if you divest from that, if that stops being your priority, if that stops being your center audience, it changes how you move so much. And that's why when I talk about, like in the beginning, I said I'm not going to be popular. The reason why is because when we define popularity, and I still do this in my head, I'm still thinking of white culture. I'm still thinking of, mass media that is something that is, white supremacist patriarchal capitalism as entertainment. And so I'm not trying to be big in that space. I'm not trying to really be known in that space, because that space is dangerous to me. That space is actively killing me. And I keep telling myself it's not. So and that's the thing, like, and you notice this, and this is just a historical thing, like you watch Black people get too big, get too successful, get too powerful in their sphere that's not centering whiteness, and what happens? They throw a whole bunch of money at it so that they can buy it and then control it. Or if they can't do that, they burn it down. The number of times people have had to rebuild everything, and I can say this even in my lifetime, just myself, I've had people come in and decide they're going to set all my shit on fire, and I got to start over and try to make something different that's better, that is not going to be vulnerable to what the last person did, only to fail again. But that is actually just a historical cycle that we experience, in this country as Black people, as oppressed people, as marginalized people. That's our reality. So just like the goal is to get away from the system. The goal is to not necessarily need this. Actually, the goal is to burn it down. But that's a big violent ask that a lot of people aren't gonna be on board for. But yeah, it will never serve us. And when you spend a lot of time focusing on how to, interact and grow in that space, just realize that, again, this is an act of self-cannibalization. And you need to, at the very least, be thinking about how are you going to care for yourself? What kind of support network are you going to have? Because that space is violent all the time.
Preach.
That's so important.
Yeah, that support system is absolutely critical. And because it's hard for us to build these things, right? Because we come up against so many challenges and roadblocks, and sometimes from within our own circles, from people we don't expect, and that's the worst ones. It's like, yo, no? Okay, cool.
Right.
Yeah, like I thought we were better than that. You gonna sell me out? Okay.
I feel that, like, so. Oh Lord. I just feel like we crabs in the barrel, one thing. Two, we also gotta really get used to being uncomfortable we're real comfortable in a lot of ways. Like, for example, we don't need your black square, Karen. Like, that's not going to do, enough. You know what I'm saying? It's not enough. But
The
I really
we?
feel like
Wait,
we
who's the
gotta,
we
like,
in this?
huh?
Who's the we and what you're talking about? Who's the
I
we?
don't need, I don't, your black square is not enough.
No, I mean like you're saying we're comfortable. Who's comfortable?
I think a lot of people in this that are in the crabs in the barrel are comfortable being there. They're not willing to step out of the barrel to create different spaces. It's not necessarily saying that it's anyone's fault,
Kind
but
of
I
like,
do feel that people are very comfortable choosing the I'll step over you to get my token space at the table
it's kind of
type
like the
situation.
Matrix, like the
A
movie
little
The
bit.
Matrix.
A
Yeah.
little
More than a
bit.
little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
I mean,
That's
because
what I meant
when
by
you
that.
are the one that's pulling somebody down, you are at
Right.
that point the agent of white supremacist patriarchal capitalism that
Exactly.
is destroying itself from the inside. Like you
Yeah.
literally take on that persona and you are
Hmm.
enacting their violence against people who are sharing the same space with you.
Hmm. And you think you're going to get a little bit of scraps from the table from that when you realize you're getting kicked too. And that's the
Mhm.
crazy thing. That's the crazy thing.
Yeah, that gets back to Talon's, self-cannibalizing, right? Like you're
Yeah.
not realizing that you're hurting yourself too.
You're just hurting yourself. Like, it's so frustrating. It's so frustrating. Like, I just so want it to be, I know it's like such a like, it's not a fairy tale dream, but I just want it to be where we can just have our own space. I just want to have our own space.
That's real. That's real. This is something we could probably talk about all night. And I'm just so here for all the comments and all the enthusiasm. I do want to ask you all one more question before we wrap up, which is what advice, and this is kind of funny asking, depending on who I'm asking, right? What advice would you give to your younger self? Um, and yeah, just I mean, whatever from I guess, and it could be from a woman standpoint or from a nerd standpoint, black and or indigenous standpoint, however you want to shape it.
I would tell this is Erica. I would tell my younger self to not be afraid to accept who I am, good, bad, ugly, indifferent. That'll be the first thing I tell myself. The second thing I would tell my younger self is follow all your dreams. Once they come to you, do not be afraid. Like, just go. Because I feel like when I was younger, I was a lot more braver. Probably because I was naive and I didn't know shit. So I had that concept because like little kids, they don't understand fear because there's something foreign to them. So they just do things and they hurt themselves. That's how they learn, through hurting themselves. And I feel like when I was younger, I didn't give a fuck about anything. I just do it, And I kind of wish I held on to that bravery. I think as I got older, you get a little wise. It's like, oh, that's not you. That's not smart, But I would tell myself just to do it. Go for your dreams. You are good enough.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, I would also like to piggyback off of that too. Kind of, I think what I would really say to my younger self is, you are doing just fine. Like, because self-doubt comes to us in a lot of different forms, right? And we start to question our own voice, right? And the sooner you can realize that your voice matters, that your point of view matters, and it doesn't have to match up with everyone else, and that people will come at you, right? In opposition, and it's okay. Sometimes that conflict is okay because it pushes you to grow and to become better. But at the end of the day, I would just say you're doing just fine. Align yourself with the right people And as Erica said, follow your dream. Like if it's something that you want to do, just do it. Don't ask for permission. Do it and do it well. Put your 100% into it. Consistently evolve and elevate your game, and just follow your passions.
I will also say to my younger self, bitch, you are not that fat. Shut up.
That too.
I know that's right. Who's next? Who wants to go next? Whoever. August.
So I'm hesitant about going because I wrote an essay, I think, saying what I would say to my younger self, but that shit be changing. Like today, I would be like, nah, you good. Like you all right. I mean, I like who I am now. I know that the things that I experienced gave me the varied perspectives that I have and taught me a lot. And and don't get me wrong, I would prefer not to have had to learn so many things through trauma,
Yeah.
but that's not from any choices I made. That's from the environment I was in. So, like, I'm good. Um, I'd be like, hey, brush your teeth more often. Go to the dentist regularly. I mean, but keep doing you.
I know that's right.
I guess what I would say to a younger version of myself is that if you have to put yourself down in order to feel accepted, that those aren't people acceptance you want to have. It's not worth it. If you can't love yourself openly and loudly and be met with just as much, if not more love, it's not worth it. And that, you know, there's going to be some points in your life where you have, you know, some hard decisions to make, and there's going to be people that you thought that, you know, you would grow old with and will give the world to, that aren't going to do the same for you, and you just kind of got to brush it off and keep it trucking. And believe somebody when they tell you who they are the first time. Maya Angelou, they will not lie to you. And that you know, at the end of the day, that no one who's going to have a very loud opinion of you, for the most part, that's not positive, is not going to fund you or support you or do anything of that nature. So, like, at the end of the day, you are the one who is growing with you. You have to live with you, and you better be the best, most authentic damn version of yourself, because I mean, you can be as inspired by everyone else you see in the world as you want, but there is no one who is going to be you. So you better listen to that damn gut and keep it pushing.
No, that's right. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I guess it's me.
Yeah, it's you, girl.
I mean, for the most part, I'm good. For the most part, I'm good because I played, I don't know. I have friends, but I did a lot of loner stuff when I was younger. Because like I said, I'm a person who collects experiences, and I wasn't waiting for anybody to go get them. So I did a lot of my, you know, wanderlust traveling, a lot of my own things by myself, and I made friends wherever I was going. I mean, you'll always find more people where you're headed to. I guess that's the best way to put it. But if I were to say something, it would definitely be understand that the value that you place on someone might not be requited. Understand that when you say friend, that might not be the same meaning to the other person. I think that is definitely something that I learned over the course of time, realizing, oh, I put a lot in, and realizing when it all went said and done, it was definitely unreciprocated. So I feel like if I were to tell myself something, it would be like, make sure you invest your time in the right people.
I know that's right.
Great advice.
I know. I'm just writing down all these gems. I'm gonna come back to
That
this.
said,
Come back to this a few times in my life, okay?
You better
people
credit
be
me in that
lying though.
self-help journal you making.
I'm just saying, people be lying. People lie. You don't always know
Yes.
who they're going to be, and
That's
they
true.
maintain those lies for
For a long
years.
time.
Oh, I mean,
Yes.
So they get
absolutely. But it's absolutely what kind of like what Ronnie was saying too. Like, don't if they're telling you who they are, don't try to find everything that's good about them. So,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? Like, you can't do that either.
Right.
You know,
Those
DMX,
colored glasses be a bitch.
DMX, there's like a panel, not a panel, but like a little clip rolling around where he was talking about trust people to be who they are,
Mhm.
which isn't so much about expecting them to be better or, you know, benefit of the doubt or any of that stuff. And I would like to really tell everybody, kill that benefit of the doubt shit, kill it dead. Benefit of the doubt and forgiveness. Don't like forget, just throw forgiveness in the fucking dumpster. Um, it is so liberating once you sit back and say, you know what, I'm gonna feel how I feel about this until I don't feel like this anymore, and we'll just see how it all shakes out, because it gives you the emotional space to react however you want to feel and to process things in your own time without feeling like you owe somebody something
Yeah,
and
that's a
without
good
making
point.
you lie about it. Like, there are things that make you sad. You don't realize it made you sad when it happened. It took a week for it to click and be like, oh man, that, ooh, you know, or whatever. Like, so if you just get rid of forgiveness, because forgiveness is supposed to be about you, but it's not required for anything, you can actually live a beautiful life, never forgiving anybody for anything.
Mhm.
And then you give yourself, it's basically giving yourself permission to just to live your feelings, to feel it, and to not judge yourself for having those feelings, because it's not the
Mm,
feelings that are the problem, it's what you do in response to the feelings that becomes a problem.
true.
So
Yup. Very much
Yes.
that.
I don't
Yeah.
know why I started talking about this, but you know.
No,
No,
it's because
Oh,
they're
no,
being
no,
said. That's why.
you're good. It was totally off the whole idea. Just believe people.
Oh
Believe
yeah,
Believe
yeah.
Yes.
You
people.
know, you're not don't, yeah, because people lie. I mean, all right. So I'm not sure. They did an experiment, not an experiment, but they asked like um abusers, male abusers, domestic abusers, you know, when they would actually start abusing their partner, and like across the board, the answer was like 2 to 3 years of being with them. And that was such a shocking number, because it's like, oh wow, so they literally sit there and plan to be nice to you and to be a completely different person for 2 to 3 years.
right.
Then they start changing and controlling you, and the whole time you're doubting yourself, because they actually were trustworthy until they switched
Mm,
gears. And you
people.
can't protect yourself from that. Like, as
Yeah.
much as we want to say that you can, if somebody is intentionally, like, they're going out of their way to deceive you, you can't make them not do that.
Yeah.
And so beating yourself up and being angry or being upset with yourself because you didn't see it, that it's
That was
not your fault.
not at
Like,
all.
right.
somebody is manipulating the situation and
Right.
you to get a certain
Oh yeah.
reaction. It's not about you at all.
No,
Yeah,
definitely.
and I think that's what I meant. Like, you gotta like, for me, like, I had to understand that that's what people do.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That that you can be friends, or a partner with someone for literal ever, and then all of a sudden be like, what happened? Like, the
Right.
the the
Well,
the
people
Some
also
flip.
switch
change
flips.
too.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, oh, okay.
Like, sometimes people
Wow.
just
Who
change and they
this?
just turn different.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. And
they
kind of
do.
going off of what you said, Talin, like there's I think this is something that I actually really finally hammered into myself just this year is we can throw forgiveness in the dumpster for literally everyone else except for yourself. And
Mhm.
there
Mm,
is a level of forgiveness that you have to have for your past self for doing what you felt was best at that time with the knowledge that you had. And hindsight is always going to be 2020, and there's always something that you would have done different with what you know now. But like forgive past you for surviving. Period, point blank. Forgive past you for surviving.
I gotta sit with
I
that
agree.
one, because I don't, I don't feel like I had to forgive myself for things either. I did what I did.
Hmm.
Um, but
No, I mean that means that you weren't carrying any guilt about it at all, which is even better. But for
oh no, I
anyone
carry
that did,
guilt, but it's different. But yeah, it's not. you know, um, even if you like, there are going to be things even in your life, the decisions that you made that you're going to mourn, and and it's not a linear process. You're going
Mhm.
to mourn them at different times, and if you tell yourself, hey, I forgive myself for thinking this thing or doing this thing, when you hit that other unexpected period of mourning, you start getting angry at yourself. Why do I still feel this way about this? I thought I
Mm.
was over it. I said I was over it last year, and now you're doing that weird cycle of, basically punishing yourself for not being as far along in,
Mhm.
the process that you
Exactly.
thought you were. And so I'm like, yeah, now just throw the forgiveness out. Just give yourself space to process things and understand. Like, I mean, what you said was real. It is true. You did things and you did the best you could with the information you had, and
Mhm.
that's okay. I
Mhm.
mean, that's okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you all so much. This has been so wonderful. And it's like we never have enough time, I swear. And I really miss y'all, quite frankly.
Yeah.
I miss, I guess, normal, if you want to call it that. And that's a whole other conversation in of itself, because what we were dealing with before wasn't normal. But I definitely want to have you all back. You all are just such great thinkers and leaders in all of your own right. But I want to give you all the opportunity to shout out your socials, and we gonna wrap this up. So, Ronnie, why don't you tell folks how we could follow you and support you?
All right, I made this real easy for you guys on Instagram and YouTube and Facebook. Anything safe for work is going to be under the name Wreck It Ronnie with underscores between the words. Now, if you're chilling at home when it's 10 p.m., when the kids are asleep, you can find me on Twitter and OnlyFans and TikTok as at It's Bunny Black, and the bunny is with an I.
Mm-hmm.
Anything that's got
You
Bunny
said
Black on
easy.
it. No, that's but it's easy because now you don't have to like wade through or put on any sort of protective lens because I got many facets. I got like 99 attributes. And now you don't have to worry about if you can scroll through which feed in public. Wreck It Ronnie, watch on the bus. Do the It's Bunny Black in your closet. You know what I'm saying? A lot of lights turned off.
Love it, love it. It's like Sasha Fierce,
Exactly. Bunny Black is my Sasha Fierce.
Talon, why don't you tell the people how they can follow you and support you and buy your books and all that good stuff?
So I'm easier than Ronnie, in that all my stuff is Tyler and Kel. That said, I mean, I personally don't think that the things that I post on Instagram and Facebook are, unfamily unfriendly, because it's literally, I have a body and sometimes it's covered a little more or a little less, but it's not me doing anything. It's just me having less or more clothing on. But yeah, I'm Talon Kell, no spaces, no underscores. If you go to my website, talonkel.com, it'll link you to my YouTube, where I have old videos and I used to do interviews back in the before time, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, which I don't even stream on no more because I just want to play. And like, I want to play with no audience. Um, and OnlyFans, yeah, I'm Talon Keller on OnlyFans, but you can connect through all of that some way. Well, probably easiest on Instagram, but yeah.
Cool. So for myself, you can look up Moana Nui podcast anywhere you find your podcast. We're there. My website is moanamcadams.com, and there you can check out our comic books, our clothing line, which Cece and Anita have wonderfully modeled for me, showing ladies of all shapes and sizes. Our children's book, all the good things are at moanamcadams.com. I'm on Instagram at The Real Life Moana, and on Facebook at Moana McAdams, Moana Nui Podcast. But yeah, definitely come and check out the podcast. We got so many amazing guests, and I will be connecting with some of these ladies because I would love to talk with you guys more.
Yay.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. And I'll definitely make sure to connect you all too, as
Yes.
edition around here. Miss Hardison, where you at, girl? Tell the folks how we can follow you and read your magazine.
All right. Well, I'm easy. Everything is Fabulized Mag. FABULIZEMAG. That's Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, fabulizedmag.com. Yeah, so you can find me there. If you with the shits, you can find me also on my personal Twitter, Miss Yummy Dread, even though I'm bald head now. Is the YUMMYDREAD on Twitter. Don't let the check mark fool you. I will run up on you if I have to.
Say it, girl. All right, Tranquil, take it away.
I'm Tranquil Ashes on pretty much everything. It's probably easiest to find me or connect to all the other things, Twitter, Facebook and all that on my Instagram. Everything's linked on there. You can find information about the gala at on Instagram at the Cos Gala, and it has its own website, thecosgala.com. Updates coming soon for the gala next year, giving some form of stabilization. But follow me for plus size shenanigans.
Hey.
Hey, plus size shenanigans.
Plus size shenanigans.
Yes. So I want to thank you all so much again for your time and your energy and your insight. Again, and you can follow us at HBCUCon, hbcucon.org. Be sure to check out the rest of the con. I'm going to post in the comments the link for the virtual space. Feel free to check that out and, create your own avatar. Talon and I were running around roasting marshmallows and fishing and doing all kind of crazy stuff. Checking out the Talon's table and the Moana's table. So, it is
all kind of stuff. Marshmallows, fishing,
Yeah, talking trash. You can voice chat on there, so we were talking trash and stuff. So we, but yes, come and it's free. It's all free. You got nothing to lose. Except for maybe bandwidth on your computer because it does take a lot of bandwidth. But other than that, it's good. But yes, thank you all so much again, and I bid you all adieu. Have a good night.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Love y'all, man.